down silos and promote the exchange of ideas by bringing everyone together. Always be inquisitive, and never assume that every answer is known. Often, what may seem like simple questions can lead to significant breakthroughs and optimal outcomes. Confidentiality versus safety. Striking the right balance in workplace communication. Our work environment constantly demands a balance between confidentiality and safety, between fostering trust among coworkers and recognizing real risks. This balance can be the difference between a typical day on the job and one that makes company headlines for all the wrong reasons. Let me illustrate this balance with a simple interaction I once had when an electrician showed me some pretty expensive stainless steel tubing work, explaining how it was used and what it was capable of. The tubing was bent and run in a way that was less than elegant. Ideally, the tubing should be bent and installed with great care, making sure that each row of tubing is evenly spaced. The angles across the ceiling or running through the building should be carefully aligned, following a consistent and well-thought-out pattern. But in my experience, I'd seen more shoddy tubing jobs than good ones, so I thought this one was halfway decent. Come break time, I jokingly commented on it to the guy who'd installed the tubing, whom I'd known from outside work. I mentioned that our electrician had shown me his handiwork. The tubing installer laughed it off, admitting it was not his finest work. But the electrician across the table from us was less amused. He looked me in the eye and told me to keep quiet. Not all matters are meant to be broadcasted, especially those that might put a fellow worker in an awkward spot. After all, I was not publicizing the situation out of concern for the tubing. I was merely looking for a laugh. Balancing confidentiality with safety can be challenging. Suppose a colleague shares personal matters such as family or financial difficulties. Naturally, you keep that to yourself. Similarly, if something works right, although it looks terrible, you could turn a blind eye. But what if someone reveals something that could put others at risk? Is silence still golden? Picture this. We had a guy offshore who accidentally ran the crane into the drill rig derrick. This is a big deal because of the amount of weight the derrick holds when drilling a well. The operator tried to sweep it under the rug. He secretly brought out 3 construction guys to fix it and keep his mouth shut. But you cannot keep a secret like that for long. Someone saw the bill and, wrestling with doubt, eventually reported it to the manager. The guy was demoted and moved off the facility. Safety has to be our top priority. No two ways about it. Even if it makes for some tough conversations. We've all got each other's backs and are here to learn. We know mistakes happen. We do not expect anyone to be perfect, but we can't stand for anything that puts us at risk. In our line of work, silence might be golden, but safety is priceless. How to transition to a transparent work culture. A company's organizational culture is intricately woven from its core values, beliefs, attitudes, and shared expectations. These elements collectively dictate how everyone within the organization interacts, behaves, and perceives their role. In environments where errors are met with blame rather than understanding, employees might avoid taking responsibility out of fear of repercussions. Such a setting discourages addressing challenges collaboratively and head-on. When uncertainties or challenges arise, it's imperative that every member feel confident in communicating the issue, placing emphasis on solution-driven discussions and ensuring everyone's safety. Our ultimate aim should be to foster an organizational culture that celebrates transparency, collaboration, and continuous improvement. Firms that put a premium on such values not only earn greater respect from their employees, but also strengthen mutual trust. To direct your organization toward this ideal culture, consider the following strategies. Transparent talk. Foster open, direct, and timely communication. Transparency should be the norm. Demystify decisions. Leadership should ensure that decisions are well explained, moving away from the "because I said so" mentality. Champion honesty. Recognize and appreciate candid disclosures. even if they aren't particularly positive. Shelve punitive measures and instead opt for constructive dialogue. Encourage innovation. Motivate employees to identify and implement improved methods, enhance operational efficiency, and uncover cost reduction measures. Engage them in solution-oriented dialogues. Commit to continuous learning. A genuine investment in the continuous learning and growth of employees signals that they are esteemed assets of the organization. By embracing these strategies, companies can pave the way for a culture that values honesty and teamwork, thus cultivating a harmonious and productive work environment. The cost of covering up. At workplaces around the globe, there is an unwritten rule: mistakes happen. What defines us is not the misstep itself, but our response to it. Covering up errors is akin to pouring gasoline on an already raging fire. It only escalates the situation, often leading to unintended consequences. I learned this lesson firsthand after a particular incident involving paint. While cleaning the paint storage area, a coworker disposed of gallons of paint by pouring them straight into the drain. He never thought of asking what our protocol was for disposing of chemicals. Down it went through a connected series of pipes to the drain tank and was later pumped into the oil line. The next day, the receiving facility called to ask, "What the heck are you guys shipping us in your pipeline?" "Oil?" I ventured. "Nope. Looks like oil with a mysterious gray, chalky layer floating atop." I could not come up with an answer. The layer floating on top of the oil was a mystery. A month later, a section of the platform's drains clogged. Not surprisingly, as drains and bathrooms are two things that never work on the platform. People, out of convenience or ignorance, dispose of the unlikeliest items. Earplugs and mop strings are the most common. They dispose of small pieces of welding rods, sand and dirt, chew spit, oral tobacco, and sunflower seeds. On top of that, rags. When things break on a platform, they get repaired with whatever is on hand, so they never end up being quite right. But this blockage felt different. For 3 grueling days, we wrestled with the blockage, deploying high-pressure water to clear it, all the while sweating to maneuver in the claustrophobically tight, grimy, and occasionally slippery 3-foot space between 2 floors where the drain lines were located. Fast forward a year. Casually lounging and catching up on Top Gear, I recalled the drain episode with my coworker. A light bulb went off. "That was you! You poured all the paint in the drains," I exclaimed. He laughed and tried to play dumb. If we had known earlier, our approach to the situation would have been different. We would have understood what we were up against. We might have opted to cut the metal pipe out and weld in a new one, potentially saving a day's work. Additionally, we would have understood what was going on at the onshore facility and how to treat the problem on their end. How to avoid cover-ups in your team. To coax the truth from him, I first established trust. I assured him our conversation was just that, a conversation. No superiors, no pointing fingers. Instead of reprimanding, I lightened the mood with humor. At the same time, I gently let him know that his oversight had not gone unnoticed. I reminded him how much work and sweat we had gone through. My intention was not to make him feel guilty, but to instill responsibility. We talked about how he had made that decision. In that conversation, I learned a lesson I've taken to heart. It is more effective to critique one's actions than one's character. When things go wrong and cover-ups take place, I take an inquisitive approach, not an accusatory one. Questions like, "Is it possible this valve was opened?" Or, "Is there a chance you accidentally triggered this valve?" prove effective. Instant coaching can also be invaluable. For example, for future reference, instead of that valve, just turn this one and activate the pump. Otherwise, you risk damaging the motor's belts. Finally, using a detective's insight and our intimate knowledge of procedures, we often revisit the crime scene, asking